crush your enemies.
They drew first blood, not me.
See them driven before you.
Oh, my user.
And hear the lamentation of your women.
But I pity the fool.
Glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate.
Oh no.
They're here.
Oh, real light sleeper, child.
Welcome to Vintage Video, where we're rewatching the 80s so you don't have to. We'll be reviewing every major film release of the 1980s in chronological order, overanalyzing what you've seen and spoiling what you haven't. I'm Patrick O'Reilly.
I'm Jesse Bayless.
And I'm Richard Wells.
And today we're discussing The Last Shark, aka Great White, aka L'Ultimo Squalo. Released March 5th, 1982, it was written by Vincenzo Mannino and Marc Princi, based on a story by Ugo Tucci, with uncredited work from Ramón Bravo, directed by Enzo G. Castellari, and released by Variety Distribution.
I thought for sure you were going to say uncredited work by Peter Benchley.
Yeah, that too. The original Italian title, L'Ultimo Squalo, translates directly to The Last Shark. The film was retitled Great White for its US release, and Shark for the UK release. 2 weeks into its American release, it had amassed a whopping $24 million.
What, really?
A record box office for Australian distributor Film Ventures International. Understandably, lawyers from Universal Pictures reached out to FBI with a lawsuit alleging plagiarism, and the courts agreed and forced the film to be pulled from theaters. In Japan, it was released as Jaws Returns, using images and fonts from Spielberg's film in the advertising, and in Spain, it was retitled Jaws 3. In Brazil, it was called O Último Tubarão, as a reference to the Brazilian Jaws title Tubarão, and audiences were vocally disappointed to learn the films were unrelated.
So what did they call Jaws 3 when Jaws 3 was actually released?
Jaws 4, I don't know. Whatever they felt like. As we mentioned in our review of Kill or Be Killed, Edward L. Montoro, the founder of Film Ventures International, was separating from his wife at the time, and in the wake of Universal's lawsuit, fled the country with $1 million to avoid a hefty divorce settlement, effectively shutting down the company and ending plans of further films in the Kill or Be Killed series, and probably sequels to this too, which director Enzo Castellari says he considered until the mechanical shark used in the film was damaged beyond repair. Footage from this film and Spielberg's Jaws were both recycled into the better-known Italian Jaws ripoff Cruel Jaws in 1995. The Last Shark got a Riff Tracks episode in 2016, so I'm going to be seeking that out soon. We open the film with a bouncy rock song over a guy windsurfing alone on the open ocean. He manipulates the sail to steer his board, and his movements are whatever the opposite of graceful is. Herky-jerky?
Yeah, for someone who's supposed to be the top regatta windsurfer, he's
You can tell he learned how to do it today.
Yeah.
We cut into the recording booth of WSGA radio DJ Bill Hoyt, looking out over the docks at South Bay. He mentions the upcoming South Bay Centennial Regatta this Saturday. Someone named Mike Patterson is the fan favorite to win the contest, which takes place here on the bay every 100 years since windsurfing was invented 20 years ago. I don't think that's what he means by centennial windsurfing competition. Listening to the broadcast elsewhere on the beach, another competitor, Billy Joe Wells, talks back to the radio.
Where'd you get your input, Hoyt? Mike's just about sleeping on his board these days.
Of course, Billy Joe Wells figures he's got a chance, too. Don't you, Billy Joe?
Here we go again. Cub reporter's got to have his morning shot at Dad.
Well, who knows? Maybe his daddy will buy that trophy.
Billy Joe flips off the radio, with his middle fingers not the power switch, and Hoyt assumes correctly that he's gotten on the kid's nerves.
Oh, Billy Joe, that's no way to talk to a pal. I'll tell you what. I'll play a record for you anyway. I was going to play it for Mike, but I don't think he can hear it.
We cut back to the windsurfer on the water, and presumably this is frontrunner Mike Patterson. Then we cut to a guy named Dave leaning into his Jeep on a beach when his girlfriend Jenny wanders up from behind to surprise him with a kiss. Hoyt on the radio reminds his listeners that Billy Joe's dad, William Wells Sr., is offering up his property for a barbecue during the centennial. Hoyt also points out that Wells is running for governor and he might be trying to buy votes with this generosity. Jenny assures Billy Joe that there are no voters listening to WSGA. Don't worry. Back on the water, we see Mike practicing and cut back and forth to the POV of something swimming beneath him. It follows a school of fish who quickly retreat and then tilts up to watch his board float by.
I do have to say that there is something very unsettling to watching the shark's POV with no music.
Yeah.
As classic and threatening as the famous Jaws score is, just to have silence is actually a little bit more frightening.
And also slightly more legal.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of how when you're scuba diving underwater and it's like this vast open space, but because it's also like silent and you're in your mask, like it's also super claustrophobic, even though you're in this open space. It's really eerie.
It's like sensory deprivation a little
bit.
The POV reaches the surface and bites his board in half. When the POV loops around for another attack, it launches Mike into the air and destroys what's left of his surfboard.
This bite mark on here is ridiculous looking.
Yeah. It looks like a 7-year-old drew a shark bite.
Yeah.
Just like zigzag, zigzag, zigzag.
I imagine that, like, I realize that they have rows of sharp teeth that can pierce this thing, but
it would have to bite at a weird angle.
Even if you were to pierce it multiple times and rip it, like the foam is just going to break in like a circular-ish manner. Like it's not going to break in multiple, pointy, jagged
unless
things
this is
like it's a cartoon.
It's a dental foam that they use for taking casts of shark teeth.
Well, there you go.
And making wind surfboards. Mike is pulled below the surface and his friends lose sight of him from the shore. We cut now to a woman named Gloria arriving home to her beachfront property with a bag of groceries. The way she's gripping her furniture in her living room made me think she was blind at first until I remembered she just pulled up in a car. A series of inserts in her living room reveal men posing with a dead shark on a hook and a headshot of James Franciscus playing the part of Peter Benton and an author's photo on the back of a book, which is no doubt an unsubtle reference to Jaws author Peter Benchley. Peter Benchley. His name is not Peter Benchley. The camera tilts down on the skeletal jaws of a shark propped up on a coffee table and then across the room to Benton hunting and pecking at a typewriter. His wife forgives him for not making coffee because he seems hard at work, but he yanks the page out of the typewriter and throws it away.
I'd have probably made just as bad coffee.
This film is original because he's not a cop, he's a writer, but he's never a writer after this scene, and he is a cop for the whole rest of the movie for some reason.
And I guess some kind of shark expert?
Apparently. Gloria asks where their daughter Jenny went, and he explains she's windsurfing with the boys. She also reminds Peter that he promised to join her for a meeting today with Mayor Wells's election committee. He tells her he's out of good excuses not to go, just as Jenny rushes in with an emergency. Mike Patterson has disappeared while practicing windsurfing. We cut right to Peter piloting a boat with Jenny and her boyfriend Dave in search of the missing windsurfer, and then cut back to the campaign headquarters of William Wells Sr. Peter's wife, Gloria, arrives without him to the committee meeting, and on her way in, a guy named Ned gives her shit about it.
Peter didn't show, huh? Well, it doesn't surprise me.
He has his own reasons, Ned.
Yeah, I bet. The artist can't be bothered with little things like his hometown celebration.
We cut to the open water and a small chunk of Patterson's destroyed board. Someone reaches out with a metal hook to pull the shredded chunk out of the water, and wider we see this is Vic Morrow as Ron Hammer, and he looks concerned by the bite patterns on the debris. He spreads his fingers across the zigzaggy edge as if to measure bite size. Peter coasts up beside Ron's boat with Jenny and Dave, and we cut back to the committee meeting. Wells and his associates remind Gloria of the importance of Peter's participation in this festival. Before Gloria can properly explain his absence, a phone call from Washington comes in to whisk Wells away. There's a TV camera crew filming the mayor's campaign, and director Bob promises he can get a cut of the segment to Mr. Wells right away. Wells wants it in 30 minutes. That's too quick. We cut back to Ron Hammer's boat at sea, and another quick glimpse of the underwater POV. On the deck, he shows Peter a much larger piece of the chopped surfboard with bite marks all around the edges.
One thing's for sure, it wasn't a floating chainsaw.
I've lived here 30 years. Never been a reported shark sign of anything big enough to have done that since I've been.
And there was only that one floating chainsaw.
Ron warns him that once the sharks get a taste for man, they're insatiable. But Peter holds out hope that the missing windsurfer Mike is floating around out there on what's left of his board. I doubt that somehow.
Yeah.
There's not that much left. It suddenly occurs to Peter that the town is hosting a windsurfer regatta on Saturday, and they make plans to ensure its cancellation. Just then, a shape passes under Peter's boat, tied up next to Ron's, and nudges the bottom hard enough to knock Jenny overboard. Ron and Peter rush to yank her out of the water, just ahead of the shark's POV beneath them, and she's annoyed at how roughly they do it, unaware of the threat.
What's wrong with you guys? You almost scraped my side off.
For some reason, they keep the danger a secret and insist they just don't want her to float away. Peter presents the tooth-scraped board chunk to Mayor Wells, who suggests a propeller blade could have done the same damage.
What makes you so sure it's a shark? Could have been a prop, couldn't it?
Oh, come on, Bill. Look at that board. You seriously think a propeller made those cuts?
Yes.
Which is a line borrowed almost straight from Jaws.
Well, this is not a boat accident. It wasn't any propeller. It wasn't any coral reef. And it wasn't Jack the Ripper.
And then reused later in Cruel Jaws.
It wasn't a speedboat propeller. Then what was it? Could have been a shark.
Wells' assistant, Matt Rosen, even suggests that the board could easily have washed up from Florida and might not belong to Mike at all. Sometime later, Peter has a doctor and Mike's mother in his office, and a call comes in from the Coast Guard saying they've recovered something. We cut right to the Coast Guard towing a smaller boat listing in the water into the harbor. The boat belongs to Ed Glover, and the man is nowhere to be found. Some in the growing crowd are quick to blame Ed's drinking for his disappearance.
Ed Glover's the last sailor around here to get himself caught in the Eagle Rock Current.
Unless he got caught in a haze.
Mayor Wells and his aide Matt joke that Peter will blame this on the shark too. But then, just as they board the boat, a cop runs screaming out of it, and we see Ron lean down and uncover a severed human hand on the floor. Ron and Peter are convinced right away that their shark did this, and it's time to cancel the regatta. But Matt starts offering crazy alternatives.
Well, but this is also like Jurassic Park Lost World,
right?
Where there's just an arm holding a steering wheel. It's like, well, wait a minute.
Hold on. How did this happen?
How is there still just the shark ate everything but the hand?
Yeah.
Like he went in, he was like reaching out of the shark's mouth as the shark's mouth
Or
came
he was
down.
leaning that far into the shark's mouth and he was like jumping away
right
as the shark bit down, and only the hand made it out. Only the hand escaped and it flopped into the boat.
And now it will go on a killing spree.
Right, yes. Demonoid.
Couldn't it have been something else? Couldn't it have been an explosion? We all know that when Ed goes fishing, he uses grenades.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, nothing's burnt here, and there's no other damage to the boat, so probably not. Also, why do we let Ed do that? Suddenly, Vic Morrow dips into a bizarre accent for this Ron character. I don't think he was doing it before this scene, but he's just blatantly doing a Quint impression for the whole rest of the movie.
No explosion did this. You see any powder marks here? Look at it. Look at it and tell me a grenade did this.
A grenade did this.
The end. Just credits roll. Mr. Wells doesn't even care if it was a shark. He views canceling the regatta as quitting and refuses to submit to their demands. Gloria spots another chunk of Mike's board floating in the water, confirming for most of them that Mike won't be found alive, but Wells reaffirms his decision.
No damn shark's gonna screw up a whole year's work and planning. We're going ahead with the regatta, and there won't be any risks.
There won't be any risks? What are you talking about? We just told you there's a shark.
I would think there's a risk with the regatta without a shark.
Yeah, regattas
People
are
out
dangerous.
in the water.
There's also a regatta in Cruel Jaws. Peter and Ron are left standing in amazement at the dock, and Ron assures Peter that in all the ocean, only a great white could cause a bite that size. What size? He just found a hand, that's all.
I think he means on the board.
Either way, I don't think there's enough here to determine that no shark larger than this could have done that. We cut to a montage of people underwater installing shark-proof fencing, while the mayor assures the town that the bay will be totally safe during the regatta. He gestures to a map he apparently commissioned from a third grader that makes use of pennies and gumdrops to represent the netting and outside boundaries of the event.
So I'm confused by this, in so much as it seems like he doesn't want to tell anyone that there's a shark threat out there.
Yeah, there's shark-proof fencing for no reason.
We're going to put this big metal fence up.
Doesn't he call it a shark-proof fence in the recording, though?
But like, what? Aren't people going to be aware that then there's a shark threat?
Yeah.
I think that they are aware, but at the same time, I wouldn't be in the regatta if I knew.
But they have it both ways, kind of, because we also reveal here that this is not airing live when he's talking about the shark-proof fencing they installed. This is a presentation that Wells's PR guy, the TV director Bob, has put together in the event it becomes necessary to calm the public. Like, if they find out about the shark on their own, they'll say, don't worry, we're prepared for that.
But also, how do you know the shark's not in the netting area?
Right, exactly.
Like, did you search?
Yeah.
We just took some pots of pans out there and hit them together, made some loud noises, got them to,
You have to walk the fencing out from shore the whole way. Like you're straining the entire ocean.
They just spray the bat shark repellent out into the water.
There's so much of that in this movie. Bob asks if he should warn the station about the potential dangers, and Wells tells him not to say shit about it. It's like, I'm an independent reporter, but okay, Mayor, I'm not going to tell my own boss about a highly valuable story like this.
Well, this actually will play into this guy's character in the sense of like, it's like, oh man, if I get some just brutal death shots, that's going to be great.
Wells stops by to visit Ron and offers an army of 10 boats to anchor just outside the fence as added protection against the shark. But Ron says he only really needs one thing.
My office has instructions to give you whatever you need. Just call.
That's very nice of you, but there's only one thing that I'd be needing.
Name it.
Out of that great white, Mr. Wells. Just the head.
Before or after the regatta? Like, if we catch it, you want the head, or you promise to do this work for me if I give you its head? Because I don't need you if I have its head. We cut to Peter presenting the captains of 10 boats with a slideshow on the dangers of great white sharks.
Now, I know the great white isn't supposed to be in our waters here, but maybe it's old or crazed or for some reason it can't compete for the food where it normally feeds. Whatever the reason, here it is.
He invites Ron to finish the lesson, and he shares the shark's few weak points with the crowd.
Because the great white shark, you cannot scare off. Not this animal. Especially because he's had his taste of human flesh.
We'll never see any of these people again.
Mm-hmm.
They just hired an army of professional shark hunters to help stave off an attack, and they're not even there for the regatta.
Well, they all pieced out. They're all like, yeah, no, I don't know.
Never mind.
Yeah, I'm not messing with the great white shark.
I thought I was getting paid for nothing. I thought this was a myth. We cut back to the beach and a man barbecuing, but then there's a crowd of windsurfers who are laying their boards in the sand with sleeping bags in anticipation of tomorrow's regatta. So they're staying overnight here on the beach?
I guess.
Is it nighttime? Because it doesn't look like nighttime. I don't know why these people aren't sleeping at their houses the night before. A girl emerges from a tent to announce that she's going for a swim, and we get slow motion footage back and forth of a shark in the water and the girl running to the surf. The shark crashes hard and repeatedly into the protective fencing as more and more swimmers join the girl in the water. The shark goes around the fence to a section of loose netting and is able to bite its way through and then swims into the competition area. On the way, it tangles itself in a rope connected to a red buoy and pulls the floating ball underwater. Unfortunately for Sharky, by the time it makes its way inside, the swimmers have all run back to shore.
I wasn't sure if they had seen the shark.
No, they just got out 3 seconds later.
It's like we all splash into the water. It's like, okay, we're done.
Very refreshing. Anyway, time to sleep in dirt.
I would say it's unrealistic, but that's pretty much me when I go to the beach. It's like, I like put my toe in the water. It's like, okay, that's enough.
I am all set. We cut back to the beach and a man barbecuing while a crowd of windsurfers lay their boards in the sand with sleeping bags in anticipation of tomorrow's regatta. I think it's tomorrow's. Later on the same beach, the sun has risen and more people arrive. Some girls walk to a large booth in the sand and put in a coin, causing a window to slide open and a man inside the box to play a song on the guitar.
This was so weird.
Yeah.
I was like, is he just sitting in there baking in the sun?
He's been in there for hours.
Somebody frees him with a coin.
How did he even, did someone have to lock him in, I guess, at some point? Did he have to climb in through that little window?
This
or
whole
did he
thing...
walk, lift the whole box and walk it out to the middle of the beach and sit down and wait? Elsewhere on the beach, a troop of cheerleaders spell out the word Wells with a cheer I will have to clip so that we can use this as Richard's introduction if we ever do a live show.
I do have to say, it was very impressive how they arranged the pom-poms into the letters. It's like, man, that's some good coordination.
I thought you would like it. That'll be the GIF for this one. There's nothing else in this movie.
You're not going to do one of the giant shark head just popping out of the water.
That'll be good too.
It's like a paper mache.
Yeah, it literally looks like just a cardboard cutout of a shark. Moving through the crowd, Wells flirts a bit with Gloria and thanks her for dragging Peter out this time. Jenny and her boyfriend Dave and their friends arrive ready to compete. Jenny tells Dave to please be careful out there, and he assures her everything is safe. After all, her author father and that strange hammer guy set up all the traps necessary. They didn't set up any of these traps. Other people did.
Come on, Jenny. Don't worry. Your father and Mr. Hammer have taken care of everything.
The competitors are ordered to the starting line, and Bob coordinates his cameramen for the television broadcast of the event. We get a quick insert of the shark-sized hole in the net to remind us that the event is not safe at all. The crowd cheers on the various competitors, and in the middle of the competition triangle, the red buoy surfaces. When Ron notices the buoy being dragged through the water, he instantly guesses what's happening and orders the kids out of the water. Unfortunately, at the same time, several kids are falling off their boards in the vicinity of the buoy, and Peter calls out on a megaphone for everyone to get out of the water immediately. In direct conflict with their instructions, competitors are diving into the water, and some are swimming to Ron's boat as he floats through the most dangerous section of the course. Bob, live editing his footage of the disaster, is elated with the material he's getting.
Wow, that's it. Fantastic.
Someone finally spots a dorsal fin sticking out of the water, but as far as I can tell, the shark still hasn't attacked anybody here.
Yeah, it's just knocking people off their boards.
I couldn't even tell if it was or if they're just panicking and falling.
Well, and it almost seems like it wouldn't be doing it intentionally, not because I don't know how aware it is.
I'm really sorry, guys. I'm just trying to get through here.
Yeah, because it's dragging the buoy, so it's probably like 10, 20 feet underwater.
Right, yeah.
So it might not even be aware that it's doing it. Did you guys spot like the random Confederate flags that were flying?
No, I didn't.
I was like, what the heck? Where are we?
Yeah. Well, probably Florida. That's where they shot a lot of this stuff.
Okay.
But also footage of this sequence and of the race before things go wrong is the stuff that's used for the same regatta event in the 1995 Cruel Jaws film. They didn't even pay teenagers to go pretend to windsurf for 5 minutes. It's funny enough that they borrowed so many lines from the actual Jaws franchise, but that they stole from another Italian Jaws ripoff for footage is just hilarious to me. The buoy in the water makes a beeline for Matt Rosen, the mayor's aide, standing in a dinghy with another megaphone and ordering people out of the water without heeding his own advice. Out of nowhere, the dinghy is launched straight up 20 feet out of the water with Matt Rosen soaring high above it like a model rocket.
He's like so
insane.
He's so stiff.
I also love that there's no shark. There's no shark part of this explosion.
No, yeah. I feel like they said, sharks have blowholes, right? So it's probably just uses its blowhole and launches stuff out of the water.
Shoot you straight up like a mannequin into the sky. Bob can smell something in his editing booth, and it's a goddamn daytime Emmy, maybe even a Peabody. He instructs his cameraman to zoom in tight on the floundering Matt Rosen in the water, just as the head of the great white surfaces with jaws wide open behind him.
Oh, man. I have to say, this was amazing.
It looks like a cartoon shark.
Yeah.
It's so contrasted. It's like there's literally like 3 colors.
Yeah.
It's gray, white, and red for the mouth.
And it's just a mouth that's wide open, motionless.
Yeah. But would it have like a big red mouth, like a person, like with a uvula and everything?
I don't know.
Like that? It's not what the mouth of a shark looks like.
An angry crowd gathers around Mayor Wells, who refuses to make a statement at this time, and when someone reminds him of his claims that all proper precautions were taken, Ron shouts over the crowd, seemingly in Wells's defense.
Security precautions? Hey, just hold it there. I said hold it. Security measures were taken, but not for a great white of this size. I've never seen anything like it my whole life. I've hunted shark all over the world.
From outside, we hear screams rising up again, and someone reports that the shark is coming back. But why that matters to all the survivors who've been out of the water for minutes now is unclear. Like, people are still screaming and running away from the beach, and it's like, you're not in the water, dipshit. Who fucking cares?
The shark! The shark! It's coming back!
I feel like it's a weird departure from... They're stealing so much stuff from Jaws already.
Yeah.
To not have the person who wants the thing to go forward for their personal benefit to have they need to be an adversarial relationship here.
Yeah.
Rather than be like,
it's weird that they're coming to
we,
his defense.
We did stuff. We definitely tried to protect you all.
Yeah, they try to make the mayor much more of a good guy in this story than they do in Jaws. We see a man named Paul in Wells's office, and he seems to be the one bankrolling the gubernatorial campaign. He's not happy with what happened today. The shark attack is a bad look, and Paul says it will take bold action to turn voters around on this high-profile disaster. Short of killing the shark himself, Mayor Wells is short of ideas, and his son Billy Joe eavesdrops on the conversation but doesn't express a clear emotional response. I don't know what we're supposed to think. He's like listening from the next room over through a bookshelf, but he's not like surprised or shocked or disappointed. He's just listening, that's all. When Paul leaves, Wells assures his son that they'll get through this situation just like they always have. We cut back to Ron's boat, where he and Peter are loading up on dynamite, presumably on Wells's orders to kill the shark.
What would be the scientific purpose of killing it?
Revenge. But back on shore, we see Billy Joe and his friends planning their own mission of vengeance and a desperate plea for his father's approval.
Besides, when we haul that monster in the port, he's gonna be one proud papa.
Maybe he'll even hug me.
Local kids avenge friend's death. Kill killer shark. I can see it on the network news already.
The boys make a pact not to come home without killing the shark, and Jenny runs up offering her father's shotgun to assist in the shark hunt. The harbor master sees the kids taking the mayor's personal boat out and verifies they have his permission by just asking and not double-checking at all.
You don't need to see my identification.
I don't need to see your identification. We cut to Bob's footage of Matt Rosen's brutal death by shark, and he laments that he doesn't have great shots of the shark, even as we see the best shot of the shark rising behind Matt in the water. Bob's assistant says he should just use stock footage of sharks in the ocean because nobody will know the difference, but Bob laments that would be incredibly unprofessional. And we hard cut to stock footage of a shark in the ocean being spliced into this actual film.
Yeah. I mean, they're clearly poking fun at themselves here.
Are
right?
they, or do they just think that people can't tell and they're like, whatever, it's the same joke?
Oh, I think it's self-referential.
Maybe it is.
I really do. Because, like, there's so much stock footage in here, and it's wildly, like...
It doesn't match at all.
They didn't color correct anything.
Yeah.
Like, you literally go from ocean scene to ocean scene where it's gray, it's blue, it's, you know,
Green.
it's green. Yeah, it's all sorts of different colors from shot to shot.
At least the meat piles are consistent. Ron and Peter swim along the ocean floor with spear guns at the ready. They swim through a small underwater cavern for a moment and then radio up to Gloria on the boat that they're headed back. We cut away to the mayor's boat and a glimpse of the teens cocking that stolen shotgun and tossing a giant hunk of raw meat on the deck for a snack later, or more likely to use as bait for the shark. As Peter and Ron leave the cave, they're suddenly face to face with the shark in shrouded water. It chews apart the end of one of their spear guns, and the other diver, we can't tell them apart right now, fires a spear at the retreating shark and nearly causes a cave-in with the resulting explosion. Because this isn't just a spear gun, this is a spear gun with TNT on the tip of it?
Yeah, so before they went in the water, they were loading charges to go onto the tip of the spears.
And they're just firing it from inside of a cave underwater.
Yeah, which also, as we saw in what was that spy movie where the guy's girlfriend gets killed? And he wants to join the CIA to find him.
So many.
Well, when he detonates the bomb in the pool.
The amateur?
The amateur, yeah. Because we saw when you have an underwater explosion, the water compresses.
It hurts everybody in all directions. The shark blocks their only exit and then starts ramming it repeatedly to cause an avalanche of rock to prevent their escape. Ron gestures to Peter that they'll have to swim deeper into the cave with that passage blocked, and they find a narrow passage to visible sunlight. Since they can't fit through it, and they haven't learned their lesson about using dynamite in a cave underwater, they load the rest of their explosives into this tight passage and try to blast their way out. The explosion opens a path back to the boat, but it also severs one of their air hoses, and Gloria urges them back before they run out of air.
Why is she yelling at them to come back? Okay, these guys are just in normal scuba gear.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have like a full face mask,
right.
You know, diving helmet, anything like that. They can't hear her.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
They can't talk back to her. Why is she yelling, come back?
I don't know. Other than they maybe just told her we have 3 minutes of air, and they were like, just shout as loud as you can. Maybe we'll hear you. Maybe we'll be close enough to the surface to hear you and not know that we're running out of air.
Well, because she drops like a thing into the water, and I'm assuming it's a microphone.
Is it?
But I don't know what else it could be. But even so, they can't really speak to her in a way with the oxygen mask in their mouth. So
back on SS Kiddo, the teens throw their lump of meat overboard without any sign of the shark. It's on a hook though, so it's not like they just ditched it. Peter manages to drag the injured Ron back to their boat, and they split a drink and lament missing their chance with the shark. They see the mayor's boat passing by and turn back to shore. I was very surprised that this was Ron that was injured, because they set up Ron as this like shark killing expert with all this experience. And every time they go underwater, he's a fucking idiot. He has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's completely incompetent. It would be like if they hired Quint and they were like, we need you to help us go get this shark. And he's like, by the way, guys, this is embarrassing. I don't know how to steer this ship. Like, why every time they go underwater is he completely incompetent, firing his spear gun at cave walls?
Well, maybe he's better on the surface.
But like, I just love that they dive 3 times, and all 3 times it's like, what the fuck were you doing?
That's part of the reason that Quint doesn't go into the cage.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like, I don't know what to do.
No, thank you. I get panic attacks underwater.
I'm not a big fan of the sea.
Why do you talk like that then? I don't know. When the men check back in with the harbor to share their story, the mayor appears, and they mention seeing his boat at sea, but apparently he hasn't caught wind of Billy Joe's plot yet. The harbor master tells Peter and Mayor Wells that both of their kids are on the boat, and they claimed to have permission. Out on the water, the kids spot the shark, and Billy Joe empties the shotgun at it from like 60 feet away.
Yeah.
Which is relatively pointless, especially underwater, as sharks tend to be.
Yeah. You might injure the dorsal fin, maybe.
That's it. You're going to successfully piss it off at best. The shark loops around and gives their boat a love tap from underneath. They gas the engine to retreat, but the shark is parked right under the prop, and they slice up its back real bad. But we never see the results of that.
Yeah.
It's never usefully integrated into the plot, except that the boat can't leave, if you were wondering why they didn't leave right away.
I mean, if anything, it's like the best position they could have been. Just keep flooring
keep doing that until you paralyze this shark. Jenny suggests dropping the bait into the water to lure the shark back out, and we get stock footage of a real great white eating similar bait and cutting back and forth to Jenny's face just screaming in terror. The shark bait is hung on a line, and the shark eventually breaks the support bar loose from the boat, and Jenny is knocked overboard. Instead of fishing her back onto the boat with the same long pole they just knocked her overboard with, they reach halfway down to her in the water. She screams and groans in the waves, and we get one quick shot of a shark with a leg sticking out of its mouth. So I guess it bit her leg completely off and then just chewed on it like a cigar for a while. At the same time, the mayor's personal helicopter arrives with Peter and Mayor Wells on board, and we hard cut to an ambulance delivering Jenny to the hospital, even though you'd expect this to be a medevac situation. They'd probably drop her on the roof and then take her inside, not put her in a car on the shore. The POV footage of Jenny's gurney being unloaded from the ambulance and rolled into the hospital is weirdly quiet, like they'd intended to ADR a lot of emergency doctor crosstalk, but all we hear are squeaky wheels. Peter's there to see her admitted, but doesn't look like a concerned father, just vaguely confused, like he got here and it's not his daughter or something. As they roll her down the hall to the ER, he doesn't even follow them. Like, nobody tells him to stop, and he just stops. Breaking from the tradition of the Jaws films, the mayor actually shows up to the hospital to apologize directly to Peter for what happened. Peter assures him it's not his fault, and even credits his helicopter for saving the girl, but doesn't blame his boat for putting her in harm's way. Gloria begs for an update from the staff after an hour of silence, and they have nothing for her. Mayor Wells slaps his son Billy Joe hard across the face on his way out, and in the parking lot, he starts packing up more dynamite, and it seems like he's following his son's example of a mission of personal vengeance. Eventually, a doctor tells Peter and Gloria they can see their daughter, but he warns them that she may sense a phantom limb for as much as a year. She has officially lost the leg, and she doesn't know about it yet. Gloria just is grossed out and doesn't want to go see her daughter. I don't get it. I don't understand Gloria's reaction here. I guess we just needed the scene to be the girl and Peter, but her mom is like, I can't do it, you do it. And it's like, what can't you do? You were so worried. You were begging them for an update, and now you won't go in and see our daughter? Like, there's no way this is actually her mom then. This doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Peter sits with the unconscious girl and tells stories of her childhood and other times she injured herself and persevered. He promises to help her get through this with a smile as she slowly wakes, crying for help.
Help me. Daddy, please. Kill it. Kill it! Ah!
He holds her tight, and we cut back to Mayor Wells and his helicopter spotting the shark. He instructs the pilot to fly low over the shark and drops another big hunk of meat on a hook over the water. Luckily, it matches the previous hunk of meat, so they can use the same stock footage of a shark biting it. It surfaces immediately to gnaw on the bait, catching on the hook and swimming away till the line runs out. The rapid unreeling of the braided cable fishing line has sliced into the mayor's hands, and the shark swam deep enough now, with the hook in its cheek, to pull the helicopter, or more accurately, a toy RC helicopter, down to just a couple feet over the water. The shark spasms deep underwater and tears the mounted reel off the helicopter, and Wells falls in after it. The helicopter dips its skids in the water, attempting to collect Wells, but when it lifts him back out, he slips and splashes down into the ocean again. The pilot tries again to lift the man to safety, but the shark gets a hold of Wells's legs in midair and tears them off at the thigh. Pretty impressive grip on this helicopter skid, I guess. Because it seems like he literally held on tight enough to rip off his own legs in the shark's mouth.
Yep, that's what happened.
But counterintuitively, despite weighing much less now, his super grip fails him and he splashes back down a third and final time.
Well, I mean, I imagine you were
losing a lot of blood. All the blood. The helicopter dips low again to attempt another rescue, but the shark manages to bite the helicopter and pull it down into the water. Do you guys recall the last time we saw a shark bite a helicopter and pull it down into the water?
Jaws 2.
That's right. The only other shark movie that we've talked about.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Which also kind of had a regatta.
Yes. But that was more of a ricotta.
Unofficial.
That's a cheesy joke.
That's a cheesy joke. Oh, you got it reversed.
We cut to the parking lot at the harbor where we learn insanely that Bob, the news director, is still so hard up for the perfect shot of this shark that he bought a huge rack of horse ribs to lure the creature into the perfect B-roll.
I want to entice him right down the lens. Me behind it, you ain't. What's that, spare ribs? You might say horse spare ribs.
Out at sea, Peter spots debris in the water, and when Ron steers them closer, they identify the wreckage of Wells's helicopter. Peter takes no time to mourn the man's passing or anything. He's just like, oh, it looks like Wells's helicopter. Like, I clearly know what happened here. Peter is sure the shark is down there now. And then we cut to the docks where Bob and his cameraman set their new bait in place to lure the shark on camera. Back on Ron's boat, he and Peter fight over who's going to wear the dynamite belt back down to the shark. How about the guy who doesn't panic every time we're underwater?
Yeah.
Let's do that. Peter eventually relents and helps Ron suit up and dive in search of the shark.
Is the plan to kill himself?
I guess. It kind of reminded me of the scene in Tremors when they're doing rock, paper, scissors on the roof to decide whether Valentine or Earl are going to go running.
Right, but that was just like a chance.
Right. But I was also so sure because of that scene that this would end with him saying like, okay, hold on, like, let me get your arm in this backpack, and then he was going to grab the bomb belt and just dive overboard without it. Like,
see, this to me is more like also from Tremors is Bert saying, just going to walk out of there with the dynamite lit and let one of them take me down.
Yeah. But even then, Kevin Bacon's making fun of him. He's like, oh, that's so dramatic. Because I'm older and I'm wiser.
Well, you're half right.
Peter waits behind on the deck with a loaded rifle in case the devilfish surfaces again. Ron needlessly climbs into the downed helicopter where the shark definitely isn't in search of it. Like, what is he doing? Because he finds a body, but he's not interested in the body. Mm-hmm. So he's digging around through this helicopter. It's like he literally went down there to hide. Like they're playing hide and seek.
Hey, the mayor's got maybe had some money on him.
Oh, okay, maybe. He's just looking for gold bullion in this helicopter. When the shark shows up, Ron hides in the sunken craft because now he's trapped again. It's like another cave, basically. He pushes a flotation device out the side of the helicopter as a signal to Peter that he is trapped, and Peter dives in to join him. He locates Ron, tangled in wire, and unwraps him as best he can so he can swim to the surface. Ron swims off in the wrong direction, seemingly deeper under the water. It's like, what is this guy doing? You can't tell which way's up? That's black down there. Go the way the sun is. A guy named Briley shows up to the docks where they're trying to get shark footage. He's brought a powerful rifle with explosive rounds to kill the shark once Bob has his precious footage. He's not even being secret about the plan, and more people are stopping to see if it works. I thought the whole point of this was it's like, you're faking this to get this shot that you're going to splice into the news like it really happened, but you're just telling everybody what you're doing. I'm going to get this amazing shot of this shark. Unfortunately for the growing crowd, the shark does arrive and yanks hard enough on the bait line to break the last section of the dock away from its moorings and towing around 10 frightened onlookers, including Billy Joe, Dave, Briley the hunter, and somehow Jenny's mom, Gloria, out to sea. Why are all these people right here?
Right at the edge of the dock.
Yeah. 3 or 4 of them fall into the water, and Bob advises his cameraman to film it all, but doesn't bother to try helping anyone. Instead of mindlessly following the orders, cameraman Jimmy, stranded among the 6 people left on the floating dock chunk, asks Bob to call for more help. Bob promises to phone the Coast Guard on their behalf, but reminds him to keep filming, and we never see him call the Coast Guard.
No, I fully believe he was not intending. He was like, yeah, sure, I'm on the phone with him now. Beep, boop, beep. That's them.
I was worried we didn't have enough horse ribs. Now there's plenty of meat out there. We're good.
But also, this is a town that's literally full of boats. We saw a wall of boats.
Yeah.
It's like, why is no one coming out to help them?
We're just going to watch them drift off like they're a bunch of Eskimo grandparents. Just float off onto the horizon. That's a real thing they do, right? I don't know. Probably not.
I feel like North just made that up.
They didn't really do that to Abe Vigoda?
Is that where he's been?
The shark starts tearing the dock raft to shreds. Bob, the director, is no longer responding to Jimmy's messages, and when the shark blasts up from under the raft again, Jimmy is launched into the air. By the time they drag him into the raft, his body is eaten from the waist down, and he has already died of blood loss.
So he was, at this point, Ron is absolutely correct. Once the shark gets a taste for legs,
yep,
it's all it wants, just legs for days.
He's a leg man. Shark. Leg shark. Peter and Ron finally stumble upon the last 5 survivors on the dock raft, just as the shark tips the rest of them into the water. The shark goes after Briley first. The rest of them swim back onto the raft, and Peter is escorting the survivors one at a time onto Ron's boat when the shark tugs the raft away again, this time with just Peter aboard.
Yeah, he's helping them onto the boat. He's on his own boat.
Yeah.
Helping them up.
And then for the last person, he climbs all the way over and gets behind them. Just grab their hand and pull them over. That's all you had to do. He waits for the fish to reappear and then jams a big 4x4 in its mouth to little effect. Suddenly, Ron's corpse washes up. It's like, oh good, he finally drowned. Peter pulls him aboard and mourns his friend for a second. The shark surfaces one last time and begins to eat Ron's remains, but Peter manages to tear off the detonator of the dynamite belt, and when the shark disappears having fully eaten Ron, Peter pulls the trigger on the bomb as he dives dramatically into the water for some reason. Isn't that where the bomb is?
Yeah.
Also the shark?
Yeah, the shark is deep underwater at this point. There's no reason to go into the water to
unless
set
you
this
were
off.
desperate to be deaf for the rest of your life. Underwater, we see the explosion sever the shark's head from its body, and Peter awkwardly climbs back onto the raft. We hard cut to Bob in the harbor sharing the good news with the world.
It's all over. At last, our waters are free of danger. The shark that terrorized our town has finally been destroyed. And here we are on the spot with the story. Yes, folks, this is Bob Martin on the scene with our local hero, Peter Benton, who made it all possible. Let's get a little closer and have a few words with him. Ah, here he comes. Mr. Benton, would you say a few words for our TV audience, please? How does it feel to be a hero? Mr. Benton, please, you've got to say something. Please.
Peter punches Bob to the ground and leaves with his wife Gloria to check on their daughter Jenny back at the hospital. Credits roll over the car driving back to town.
Yeah, they all just awkwardly pile into the car, which is like
a lot of people get in this car.
Yeah,
it's all of her friends, right?
Yeah, it's
Dave and Billy Joe.
But it just seems odd. Like it would have been more dramatic just to have them keep walking.
Yeah.
Rather than like, okay, who's driving? I'm driving. I'll drive. Gloria, you sit in you can shotgun. Like,
I wish that they had put so little effort into this shot that the whole time they were driving straight away, that the right blinker was blinking. They just were like, no, we're good. We got it for today. It's also weird that he punches the cameraman because he doesn't know what Bob did.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless his wife immediately said like, oh, by the way, like Jimmy, the camera guy, was like on the radio with him and he didn't call for Coast Guard like he said. So punch him when we see him. But that's The Last Shark, everybody. This was in theaters for 2 weeks and it made a lot of money because people thought it was a Jaws movie.
So did all Universal get out of the lawsuit was to get it pulled?
They just got it pulled, yeah.
They didn't get any of that money?
Right. But they were trying to clear the space because they were working on another Jaws sequel.
Right,
and they didn't want it to contaminate their franchise by being so terrible.
Right.
But it made a lot of money here and a lot of money other places because in other places it was very blatantly advertised as another Jaws movie. But here it was called Great White.
There's nothing you can do about it in other countries.
Right, exactly. Because that's totally fine there. Because those countries are cool. Those are what I call cool countries. Where you can just make a sequel to whatever you want. Let the market decide what the sequel is.
There you go.
But yeah, that's The Last Shark. the performances are pretty terrible. And we just saw James Franciscus in Butterfly, and he was great.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't care about this because he didn't expect Americans to see it, probably. Same with Vic Morrow.
Yeah.
Right. I enjoyed the shark head that pops out of the water, but the underwater animatronic really looked like a dolphin wearing like a face mask on it, because like it
or even sometimes I think it might have literally been a hand puppet that was chewing through a net.
I think it was.
Yeah.
But it was really just proportionally not shaped like a great white shark.
Yeah.
The coloring was completely different than the shark that they show in all the other footage, like with like the gray and the white, you know, like this was just like it literally looked like a bottlenose dolphin without the bottlenose.
Yeah. And I was surprised that they went wide for the shot of the helicopter tipping into the water, because it really accentuates that this is a toy.
Yeah.
Because the prop is moving at like 1 rotation per second. It's like, that's way, way too slow. This whole thing should be tearing apart. We've seen helicopters crash into water in movies before. Like, it happens on TV every week. Why don't you just crash a cheap helicopter? But that shot of them dragging the shark up with the bait and him like leaning down over the line reminded me so much of the Batman scene where he does have the shark repellent.
Yeah, exactly.
And the shark is directly underneath the helicopter with a line to it.
They didn't do a very good job of making it suspenseful. Like, that's the thing that Jaws did really well.
The regatta should have been the climax.
Yeah.
But the problem is that they were trying to do basically the exact pacing of Jaws 2, and they finished the regatta like before the halfway point. So it was like the whole rest of the movie was just this dock thing breaking away, which is such a lower danger than what we already saw in the movie.
And I also feel like we really don't care about any of these characters, because we don't get any backstory on any of them. And so we're just like, okay, you can all get eaten. I don't really care.
Yeah, after what Gloria did to her daughter in the hospital, I was like, yeah, go ahead, eat her.
Yeah. It definitely felt like distant stepmom territory to be like, I don't know, that seems like uncomfortable. You should probably talk to her. You're her dad. It's like, yeah, we're both her parents, right? Aren't we? I don't know. The movie didn't spell it out. Maybe she's adopted. I don't know. But yeah, very weird. And yeah, there's not enough gravitas to anything. And the person who should have been the villain, the mayor, who's the person who's forcing this event to happen, they give him all these nice things to do and then try to like force feed us a different, like, worse villain who's just a cameraman who wants to film stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not enough. That didn't replace the mayor from Jaws, who was terrible.
The mayor getting eaten, like, that would be like climactic, but it wasn't. You know, it's like, oh, bad guy gets his, you know, there's the justice. But
it's the scene that we wanted to see in the first 2 Jaws movies and we never got.
Yeah.
But here you made the mayor like have some nice things about him. You made him
you
made him regretful and even like there was that scene in Jaws 2 that they ended up taking out where when they try to have a vote to decide if they're going to cancel the thing this time.
Yeah.
Because Sheriff Brody's being crazy. He was the only person who was on Sheriff Brody's side in the second movie. And then they cut that scene because they were like, no, it's better if he's just like a straight villain the whole time.
Yeah.
It's like, no, he needed some redemption a little bit. And this guy gets the redemption and he dies. Doesn't make any sense. But they also like, it's the same thing with the mayor has a kid who's also causing problems because we have the bully mayor's kid in the second movie.
Right.
And we also have the side story where the wife is helping someone get elected or getting some development approved by the city, and the guy that's trying to get the project underway seems to be flirting with her occasionally when Roy Scheider's not around.
Yeah. Helicopter pulled into the water.
Right, yeah. So it's clear that they were just like, let's take parts of the first one, let's take parts of the second one, and they can't sue us for that. And it's like, no, yeah, they can, because they made both of those movies.
Yeah, it was rough.
I don't know. I still feel like it's a thumbs up though.
No.
Just because it's like a party movie. It's like a movie you could put on because people get bitten in half by sharks.
But I feel like there's better movies that do that. Like
there are.
This wasn't bad enough to be entertaining, and it
That's
wasn't
true.
good enough to be entertaining.
And it's PG.
Is it really?
I believe so.
People get like limbs torn off very brutally.
Why did I think it was PG? Hang on.
It could be. I mean, there wasn't PG-13
Rating
at
system
the
is
time.
weird back then.
Yeah.
Temple of Doom's ripping people's hearts out.
Yeah, so it's PG. Jaws wasn't PG, right?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's nothing in Jaws that's more brutal than anything that happens in this movie. We don't see people's thighs separating.
Yeah, Jaws was PG. There you go. There it is.
There it is. That explains it.
Oh man,
that's Spielberg's whole problem, though. It's just like you're making me traumatize children. I want it to traumatize adults.
Yeah, I feel like this. I think I'm just gonna repeat what you said, Jesse. I'm sorry. It wasn't suspenseful. It was just It was a bunch of shark attacks, which were interesting, at least when they happened, but it just didn't have the threat because I think probably because we saw the shark too much.
That's possible.
I mean that's the whole reason Jaws worked so well because you didn't see the shark too much.
And I think there was very little time to establish that threat because like a lot of times in Jaws, we're doing the POV shots and somebody's just laying there, sitting there, waiting. And we get a little bit of that with like the first windsurfer, but I feel like every other time it's like, show the people on the edge, whack them off the boat. Like it just, everything happens so quickly.
And because they're ripping off 2 movies at once, we're getting sort of like the Jaws 2 story is getting cut back and forth with the Jaws 1 story because Ron and Peter are the Jaws 1 film. So what they're doing never relates directly to what's happening with all the other characters in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And until like literally the last scene where he's finally rescuing the people off of the dock raft. But up until then, it's like, what are we doing with these 2? Oh yeah, they were hunting the shark out at sea. At the same time as they're encountering that out at sea, it's also attacking people back at the shore.
Yeah.
Like back and forth the whole time. Mm-hmm. It's attacking someone in every scene, which, I mean, I have to say, it is a thumbs up for me because it hit the minimum number of shark attacks that I needed to give this my approval. There were like when the dock thing hadn't happened yet, I was like, is it really going to end here? Like one dude got launched up and one guy got his legs torn off and that's it. And then the dock started to separate. And I was like, okay, if this is like a bloodbath, then we're good. And it at least killed 2 more people in very brutal ways after that point. I guess 3, unless Ron just drowned.
Well, yeah.
I guess the shark didn't even kill him.
Well, so what happened to Ron is somehow the shark grabbed that wire and dragged him away.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, he's still caught
I
up
didn't
in
get that.
Yeah. I watched it a couple of times. The shark grabs the wire and drags him away.
Yes.
But I thought he literally just swam to his own death.
But it doesn't explain why his body still just shows up unless the shark's been carrying him around.
Yeah, Ron is the new buoy. It's just connected to him inadvertently.
It seemed out of character there for the shark to be that aware of what it's doing based on everything else that's happened in the film, because everything else almost seems like accidental or just natural behavior. But when it grabs the wire and just starts pulling, I'm like, what is
every other time you see the shark model surface, it could easily be saying hi.
Yeah. How y'all doing?
Oh, that makes me sad.
Yeah. I didn't quite there was another scene I was going to bring it up, but I'm probably wrong. But when they're yelling on the beach that the shark's coming back and you see the buoy, it goes between like 2 pier pylons. And that's
like the shark definitely doesn't fit there.
Yeah. I was like, wait, how did the shark get through that? I mean, they could have been wider, I guess, underneath. Right. But it just seemed like, how did a shark get through the pylons?
Yeah. How is it even that close to shore? The water's not that deep there.
I feel like it was the same thing with the caves. I'm like, why? First of all, why are you in these caves?
Right.
Second of all,
for the same reason that we went into the helicopter, because there needs to be something else in the water with us to give,
I guess, but
some geography to the
sharks
scene.
don't go in caves. Like,
yeah.
I don't understand what's happening here.
It's a thumbs down for me.
I agree with you, Richard.
Also, was that cave like out at sea? Like it wasn't even on the shore. It was just out there. Like there's no part of it peeking up out of the water.
Are they inside the net when they're searching for the shark, or are they outside the net? Does the shark have
the net is completely inconsequential after the regatta.
Okay.
They probably uninstalled it because they were like, well, net doesn't work.
Who's going to go into the water to uninstall it?
I don't know. They keep going in the water. That dude goes like, yeah, I'll hang this rack of ribs for you in the water, just bare shirted. It's like, why are you doing that? A shark killed 4 people today. Yeah. But thumbs up for me. Thumbs down, I take it for both of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
What are we doing Letterboxd?
It's pretty low. Sorry to say. I have it at 34 out of 36. It is below Final Assignment and above The Comeback Trail.
Oof.
I have it at 29, which puts it below personal best, but above Green Ice.
I have it at 22, which is just under Shoot the Moon and just above Death Wish 2. Our director here was Enzo G. Castellari. He's a low-budget spaghetti western director of titles like A Few Dollars for Django, $1 Too Many, and the original Inglourious Bastards in 1978. He also directed Killer Robot Richard Kiel vehicle The Humanoid, a previous Jaws ripoff called The Shark Hunter, and a Franco Nero Dirty Harry story called The Day of the Cobra. He's back later this season with 1990 The Bronx Warriors, an Italian Warriors film, and next season in Warriors of the Wasteland, an Italian Mad Max. He also appears as a character with his own name in Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards. So he shows up in the film.
The actual director?
Yeah, Enzo Castellari shows up, yeah. He's in the crowd in the theater when they're doing the premiere. Writer here was Vincenzo Mannino, one of the writers. Before this, he'd written Eagles Over London, House on the Edge of the Park, and later The New York Ripper, Devilfish, and Cobra Missions 1 and 2. Another writer credit for Marc Princi or Princi. Not much else I recognized. The story here came from Ugo Tucci, who's a producer on films like Duck You Sucker and Fulci's Zombie. He was also a production manager on Once Upon a Time in the West. Uncredited writing from Ramón Bravo. His only other writing credits are for adaptations of his novels into Tinto Terra, The Mexican Jaws, and Hugo Stiglitz's 1995 treasure hunting film, El Arrecife de los Alacrones. Most of his credits are for camera work and cinematography, including underwater footage for The Bermuda Triangle, Cyclone, Sunburn, and Fulci's Zombie, aka the zombie versus shark scene. Same cinematographer. He also has credits for underwater photography in Leviathan and License to Kill.
Yeah.
So he made his way over here at some point. Or I guess License to Kill was probably over there. I don't know where Leviathan shot.
Well, because License to Kill does have shark stuff.
Yeah. The music here came from Guido and Maurizio De Angelis. Before this, they score Trinity Is Still My Name, Torso, The 75 Zorro, Killer Fish, The Shark Hunter, and Alien 2 On Earth, which is not related to the Alien franchise. After this, they score 2019 After the Fall of New York. Next season, they have a music department credit on You're the Hunter from the Future, and a soundtrack credit on Death Proof for Tarantino's use of Gangster Story. The music here came from Morton Stevens for the American version. For some reason, he was brought in to rescore the film for American audiences. Maybe the other one was too Jaws heavy and they thought they could get away with this. Before this, he has lots of TV composer credits on shows like Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Dr. Kildare, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Gilligan's Island. Then he moves into mostly TV movies and Jerry Lewis's insufferable Hardly Working on the way to this. After this, he goes back to mostly TV, scoring on shows like Alice in Wonderland, Matlock, and his last credit was for 4 episodes of Tiny Toon Adventures.
Yeah.
The cinematographer here was Alberto Spagnoli. His first DP credit was on The Red Queen Kills 7 Times. Do you guys recall the last time we saw footage from The Red Queen Kills 7 Times? It's playing on a drive-in in a different horror film.
Oh, horror film.
It's not Pick Up Summer. It's not Thunderbolt and Lightfoot.
Yeah, those were the two.
Yep.
Good job.
And it's not it's not Sugarland Express.
Nope.
A horror film. I don't know.
New Year's Evil. There's a scene where he tries to hide in a drive-in and they see his car and then he has to drive through the fence, same as in Thunderbolt and Lightfoot. Later, he lights Daisy Miller, Wanted Babysitter, The Black Corsair, and Killer Fish. The editor here was Gianfranco Amicucci. Before this, he cut Inglourious Bastards, The Shark Hunter, and after this, 1990 The Bronx Warriors, Escape from the Bronx, Hammerhead, and Night of the Sharks.
A lot of shark-themed people.
When you have a specialty like that, and you already know all the locations, you just keep making the same movie over and over again.
When you already have the footage from the previous movie.
Yeah, you can use that too.
I got all the footage.
James Franciscus played Peter Benton. Before this, he's in The Valley of Gwangi, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, The Cat o' Nine Tails. He's the voice of the titular Jonathan Livingston Seagull. He also appears in the Italian Airport 4 ripoff, Concord Affair 79. We've seen him so far in When Time Ran Out and Butterfly. Vic Morrow played Ron Hammer. Before this, he's in Blackboard Jungle, Cimarron, A Man Called Sledge, Dirty Mary Crazy Larry, The Bad News Bears, Roots, Message from Space. We've seen him so far in Humanoids from the Deep, and he only made a couple more films before he was famously and tragically killed in a helicopter crash on the set of next season's Twilight Zone. He's also the father of Jennifer Jason Leigh, and in his next film, 1990 The Bronx Warriors, from the same director, he is also called Hammer. So you could consider that the same character, maybe? Who knows? Maybe he survived this one.
He survived being eaten and exploded.
Yeah, he busted out of there.
Boba Fett style.
Exactly. Micaela Pignatelli played Gloria Benton. Lots of fun-sounding Italian superhero knockoffs like Flashman and Goldface the Fantastic Superman. We also just lost her in late October of last year. Her husband, Flavio Bucci, was Daniel in Suspiria. Joshua Sinclair played Mayor William Wells. Before this, he's in Lady Frankenstein, Winged Devils, Inglourious Bastards, and later 1990 The Bronx Warriors. He has a handful of screenwriting credits, including one of those Italian faux sequels called Some Like It Cool, actually starring Tony Curtis. And so far on the show, he also wrote Just a Gigolo. The evil mayor character of this Jaws ripoff wrote Just a Gigolo last season. Giancarlo Prete played Bob Martin. Later, he shows up in Escape from the Bronx, Warriors of the Wasteland, and Lady Hawk. Stefania Goodwin played Jenny Benton. She's the daughter of director Enzo Castellari. She also shows up in his later films 1990 The Bronx Warriors, Warriors of the Wasteland, and Sinbad of the Seven Seas. She also served as an assistant director on several of those films, and later on the 1993 Super Mario Bros. Movie, Empire Records, and on Dawson's Creek, all three of which her husband Jeff Goodwin worked as a makeup artist. So I don't know which one of them brought the other one along, but those are some cool projects. Don Devendorf played Ned. He plays the priest in The House on Skull Mountain, one of our current Patreon poll contenders. Bill Utley played Chris Olsen. Before this, he's in The Great Santini, and later he's in Return of Swamp Thing, and more recently, he was Pastor Charles on the first season of Stranger Things. Massimo Vanni played Jimmy. He shows up in Inglourious Bastards, 1990 The Bronx Warriors, Zombie 3, Robo War, the Italian Terminator 2, and After Death, aka Zombie 4. He also has stunt performer and coordinator credits on a lot of similar Italian action/horror titles, and even some stunt work on Gangs of New York, Sense8, and more recently, doubling Al Pacino in Ridley Scott's House of Gucci. That's Jimmy, the cameraman who gets his legs bitten off, doubled Al Pacino in House of Gucci. Ennio Girolami played Matt Rosen. After this, he's in Tenebrae, 1990 The Bronx Warriors, Escape from the Bronx, Killer Crocodile 1 and 2, John Morrison. This was his first of 3 credits before appearances in Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket and then The Spider Labyrinth. Paul Costello.
Man.
It's pretty cool.
That sounds frightening.
Paul Costello played the mayor's attorney. I think that's the guy he calls Paul, who tells him, you're going to have to figure this out because the other team is going to win this election. He's back next season as a blind man in Yor, The Hunter from the Future, and later appearances in Warriors of the Wasteland and Escape from the Bronx. Billy Fields played paramedic. He also has medic credits on other titles, including Hopscotch, Force of Nature, The Patriot, and the 2003 Haunted Mansion. Andrea Girolami played Kid on Beach. He shows up in the OG Inglourious Bastards and Warriors of the Wasteland. He has mostly AD credits on other Italian titles I didn't recognize, and then somehow on The English Patient in 1996. But Girolami, I'm seeing that last name a lot, and that's the same last name that the director's daughter went under, so I'm assuming these are all relatives of the director.
For Billy Fields, he's actually a set medic.
Yeah, I assumed.
Yeah. So,
when you play a medic over and over again,
exactly,
it's usually because you were near the ambulance anyway. Romano Puppo played Briley. That's the hunter character that shows up at the last second with a magical gun that he never fires. Before this, he was in Dr. Goldfoot and the Girl Bombs, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Death Rides a Horse, Kill Django Kill First, Trinity Is Still My Name, The Heroin Busters, and Contraband. Later, he's in 2019 The Fall of New York, Ghoulies 2, Robo War, and After Death, aka Zombie 4. I think that's everything for The Last Shark. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share, you can find all our socials at linktree/vintagevideopod. If you enjoy what we're doing, consider giving us a review on iTunes. I don't think it helps visibility, but it's good for morale. And if you really like the show, maybe you should join our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/vintagevideopodcast. Speaking of which, what's that sound?
We got one!
That's right, it's a new patron, Paul Blankenship. As a $5 patron of the show, Paul now has access to 55 full-size 70s reviews and a hand in choosing next month's film. For October of 1974, our $5 patrons are choosing between the following 10 titles. Airport, 1975. Jack Smite's disaster sequel, second of the 4-film Airport series, about a passenger plane that loses its pilots to a mid-air collision with a much smaller private plane, forcing a flight attendant into the cockpit to take the controls. It stars Karen Black, Charlton Heston, George Kennedy, and a host of other big names, as do all the Airport films. Benji. Joe Camp's beloved family film, first of the 5-film Benji series about a stray dog named Benji who saves the day or something. It stars Peter Breck, Christopher Connolly, Patsy Garrett, and Tom Lester. Female Trouble, John Waters' independent dark comedy about delinquent teen Dawn Davenport ditching high school to embark on a life of crime. It stars Divine, David Lochry, Mink Stoll, and Edith Massey. The Gambler, James Toback's crime drama about a professor whose gambling addiction sends his life into a tailspin, borrowing what cash he can from more and more dangerous sources to throw good money after bad and feed his obsession. It stars James Caan, Paul Sorvino, Lauren Hutton, and Burt Young. Director Toback, by the way, had a cameo in that Mississippi Grind movie that I mentioned in our California Split review, probably on account of having directed this. Gold, Peter Hunt's British thriller based on Wilbur Smith's 1970 novel Gold Mine, about a mine operator who's ordered to unsafely dynamite his way to a valuable gold deposit, but unveils a massive conspiracy to manipulate the worldwide gold market. It stars Roger Moore, Susanna York, Bradford Dillman, Ray Milland, and John Gielgud. The House on Skull Mountain, Ron Honthaner's horror film about 4 family members called to hear the reading of a will and learn who will inherit the house on Skull Mountain. It stars Victor French, Janie Michelle, Jean Durand, and Mike Evans. Law and Disorder, Yvonne Passer's comedy drama about a pair of cops who decide to take the law into their own hands. It stars Carol O'Connor, Ernest Borgnine, Ann Wedgeworth, and Karen Black. The Odessa File, Ronald Neam's espionage thriller about a journalist following clues in a diary to track down the former SS captain of a World War II concentration camp. It stars John Voight, Mary Tam, Maximilian Schell, and Marie Schell. The Taking of Pelham 123, Joseph Sargent's crime drama about a team of terrorists who hijack a subway car and ransom its passengers. It stars Walter Matthau, Robert Shaw, Martin Balsam, Hector Elizondo, and Jerry Stiller, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Tobe Hooper's independent horror classic about a young woman on a road trip with friends to visit her grandfather's grave after a recent highly publicized grave robbing. During a detour to an abandoned family home in the area, they're beset upon by a family of cannibals. It stars Marilyn Burns, Pale A. Partain, Edwin Neal, Jim Sydow, and Gunnar Hansen for a 50th anniversary review next month. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you'll join us next time when we'll be discussing Making Love, which IMDb describes like so. Follows a young, idealistic married couple, Zach and Claire. They seem to be the perfect couple, college sweethearts with similar tastes and opinions. They are, important to say tastes and opinions. They're each very intelligent, sensitive, and caring individuals who can be both fun-loving and serious in turn. In turn was necessary there. Zach and Claire like one another as people as well as lovers. Each one is rising in his or her career, and they talk about having kids someday. Claire, especially, wants them to have a boy and name him Rupert. When Zach meets a guy named Bart, Zach has a very personal human crisis. Is he happy?
Oh my god.
Do you want to hear the longer one?
Oh my god.
That's the short one.
That's like the worst IMDb summary I've ever heard.
A successful young LA doctor and his equally successful television producer wife find their happily ever after life torn asunder when he suddenly confronts his long repressed attraction for other men. Zach and Claire live a comfortable life, secure in their love for one another, when Bart, a swinging LA novelist, walks into Zach's office and awakens unfamiliar feelings in him. In a move which leaves him racked with guilt, Zach cancels dinner with his wife in order to go out with Bart. He is inexplicably drawn to this man, who seems intent on keeping him at arm's distance. Why can't Bart allow their relationship to grow?
Why
he wonders.
can't
It literally says, he wonders. Exasperated, he asks Bart, "Do you snore?" Does anybody ever get the chance to find out? As Zach's absences become more and more frequent, Claire's concern manifests itself in the suspicion that he's having an affair with another woman. Jilted by Bart and feeling alone for the first time in his married life, Zach resolves to tell Claire the truth about himself. Predictably, Claire is shocked that she could have known so little about the man she has loved for so many years and accuses him of deceiving her from the very start.
Well, maybe you should hire that person. They can start doing your notes for you.
These were definitely both written by the same person, right? That's the whole movie, probably. I haven't watched it yet.
I'm pretty sure that's an AI generated.
Do you think? Maybe.
I mean, right?
I just love that it has details like he wonders. Anyway, we leave you now with the trailer for Making Love.
To him, she was the most beautiful woman in the world. Witty, loving, warm. To her, He was a friend she could always turn to, a lover, a husband, a man as compassionate as he was strong.
Wait, don't tell me. He's not at home, not back from lunch yet, and not at the clinic. Third time this week.
But there was a need in him he could no longer keep unexplored.
I don't know what to do. You gotta tell me, are you in trouble? Is there another woman?
Tell me about your mysteries, my friend. How much longer are you gonna wait?
We're gonna cut this out and we're gonna talk. I can handle it no matter what it is, but I cannot handle the silence.
So, why don't you stay the night?
I'm in love with Claire. I don't know what kind of a life I could have without her. I mean, I love her. I don't want to be without her.
Zach's the only man I've ever been with. He's the only man I've ever wanted to be with.
Then damn it, girl, what are you sitting here for?
Making Love, a love story for the 80s. Starring Michael Ontkean, Kate Jackson, and Harry Hamlin.